Well, I want to welcome everybody to the live stream event here that I'm trying to throw. I'm really excited about sharing this time and space with you because actually you are in, I didn't even think about this until I was just about ready to do this, that I am sharing with you a very sacred space in my life because you are looking at Adrien in his natural habitat, you might say, which is to say that this is my writing desk. This is where I write all my blogs and posts, and this is where Seeing Beyond and What's Real in Relationships and the Know Thyself, that's all been written right here. So you are in a very sacred, special place with me here today, and I'm happy to have you here. I also want to mention that I live in the hills of the Finger Lakes in upstate New York, so our internet can be sketchy, and I'm praying that we don't have any issues with that, but I hope if we do that you can bear with me on that, and we'll try to make sure it's as good as possible and that it works as smoothly as possible. That being said, I'm actually going to take a quick second right here to see, is it working, honey? All right. So thank you. So I'm really glad you're here. And of course, we're here to talk about this kind of crazy situation that we all find ourselves in. It affects everyone differently, both internally and externally, but the fact is we're kind of all in this together, and it's fun to share in this way this space like this so that we can kind of have a shared experience, right, where we can spend time together talking about this thing in a way that maybe you don't commonly do, which is what I want to do. So I'm going to do that by sharing my own personal story. I've actually had some kind of interesting, unusual things happen right in the midst of it all. So I'm going to start with that, and then I want to get into something that may be more useful for you as a viewer, if you're struggling, or even just trying to inspire you to keep on keeping on and to find something better out of this kind of bad situation, right? So again, I thank you for being here, and I'm really honored that we should spend this time together. So I'm going to start with my own personal story, and the story starts all the way back to last year. I had a trip planned with a very good friend of mine from all the way from last year, and it was he lives in Los Angeles, and he was going to have a project being done at his house. Now, if you don't know me, then you won't know that I've spent a vast majority of my adult life as a general contractor. So he was going to have a renovation done at his house, and he was getting astronomical prices for it. He asked me if I'd be interested in giving him a hand to try to keep the costs down and blah, blah, blah. So I, of course, said yes. But I said yes for many reasons. One of them, too, was that this gentleman actually happens to be a life coach, too. So he works in a similar field as what I'm moving into. And not only that, but he actually has a professional recording studio and some great equipment. So we were going to do this really beautiful project together where I was going to help him on his house, and we were going to work on coaching things and spiritual teachings and all kinds of cool stuff. I was going to hopefully read my audiobook with him, in his recording studio. It's a very beautiful recording studio. So this was the plan. It was great on all levels. Now, unfortunately, it was supposed to start in February, early February, late January, and it got postponed. The permits were taking time, blah, blah, blah. So I find myself landing in LAX on March 11th, I believe it is, or was. And I'm going to tell you right now, if I had landed, or if I was scheduled to land on March 13th, I probably wouldn't have gone. And the reason being that, of course, there was a lot of talk about the coronavirus and what was going on. But, again, if you know me, you know that my default mode is going to be, I try not to operate from a place of fear, right? So, I looked at all that and I thought, well, it's okay. It's going to be okay. We're going to get through it. But if I had gone 2 days later, I probably would have changed my mind, because within 2 days of landing there and being there with my friend and his family, it became very obvious just how serious it was. They were shutting schools down, traveling was starting to get restricted, and it was like, whoa, wake up, Adrien. There's something really going on here, So that put me in a precarious spot, right? We immediately started to work on his house. Instead of leisurely going about it, I could tell that I needed to probably take this a little more seriously, the actual renovation part. So we did that almost immediately. And what ended up happening, of course, was all the cool ideas that we had of recording videos and audiobooks and all kinds of other fun stuff went on the back burner. And we just focused on getting this project done, because he had already started. He had masons come in and all this stuff. So in the midst of all that, as if that wasn't enough, right, I was talking to my wife one night, and she shared with me some other very concerning and challenging news that was going on in our family. And I tried to do my best at that moment to share with my wife that, now this is probably about a week into being there, so the project was well on its way, like I was deep in it. And I tried to express to my wife that, look, if you need me to come home right now, I'm on the next plane. I hope that you know that. But if you don't feel that way, then I want to try to do my best to fulfill this obligation with my friend, and et cetera, et cetera. She assured me that she felt like it was okay and she would be okay, and that if she felt that she needed me, she would let me know. So that's how we went on our way. What ended up happening was I worked 22 days straight, pretty much. I took a couple half of days so I could get my blog out, but it was just work, right? I am happy to say that we did give it a go to record my audiobook, so hopefully I'm going to be announcing one of these days that Seeing Beyond is now available in the audiobook form. His recording studio was a pleasure to record. So that all being said, we got through it. And as we were saying goodbye, sort of like having our farewell dinner and conversations, with his family and stuff, his wife actually expressed something that I want to share with you. And I do it in the most humble way I possibly can, because I don't want to make it sound like anything more than what it is, which was this conversation that we had. And hopefully you'll see the merit in sharing it. So she expressed to me that she was very glad, of course, and appreciated that I had stuck through the whole project and didn't go home in the middle of it and all that. And I, was grateful for her to thank me for that. And she said that she also found it was a great comfort to have me around, especially in the beginning of the, reality check of the outbreak of what's going on. As the schools were shutting down, she was feeling a bit overwhelmed, and she went from feeling okay one minute to feeling completely out of control or overwhelmed the next minute. And she said that she actually found it comforting having me around, because for some reason it didn't seem to bother me, and that I always kind of had a bubbly attitude, and every day I was there and eager, and it just didn't seem to faze me. Now, of course, I want you to know again that I say this, I'm not trying to brag about the way that I was. I wasn't actually even trying to be any which way. I was just being me and doing my thing, In that conversation, she asked me, she said, is it that you don't feel these things? Like, is it just that you don't, get afraid, or that you just don't feel sad? And I told her then, we're starting to ease our way already into a lesson, if you will, I said to her, no, I absolutely feel those things. I said, I just don't believe they're who I am. I don't identify with those feelings. I have them. I feel them. I allow them. And then they move on. And then I go about my day. And then they come on again. This is like the wave thing that I'm always talking about, right? This is the thing, though. I don't identify with it. So we've already stumbled into the first thing I'd love to share with you, and we're going to get into that more. But we had a great dinner, and I took off the next morning to LAX. He drove me. It was very early. And I have to say, this is part of the story. I'm going to wrap up my personal story pretty much here. But I had hardly left his property, by the way. We just kind of hunkered down. And like I said, we work. That was pretty much it, Being at LAX, the Los Angeles airport, which I've been a few times in my life, really set into reality what was going on. Because, first of all, I walked right in there and right through security. I've never had that happen before. I don't have any special passes, by the way. I just went through the general security, and it was like, it was desolate. It was vacant. And something about that actually really made me realize, just how real what was going on is. I've never seen the airports like that before. I get on the plane, which is another thing I want to share with you, and it's pretty much empty, right? I don't even know how many, 15 people, maybe 20 people on this plane that holds hundreds, I believe. Very grounding in a way, right? Like very much like, wow, there is something going on. This is not normal, I want to share another experience with you that I had on the plane. I actually had it one other time, because I want you to know, I do feel these things, As I was on the plane. Now, I said it was pretty empty, but there's still people all around. I had the whole row. People were laying down in their seats because there's so much room. Who gets to do that on a trip from LA? But there's still people around, and you're in those tight corners and you're tight confined space, and you're sharing all the air, and something in my mind started to ponder the reality of this virus, right? That it's floating around and I could be breathing it in right now. That thought entered my mind. And I watched what my mind did with that, right? It started to create actual physical sensations almost in me. I'm sure they would call this like phantom symptoms or something, where I almost could feel this happening. Like I could feel my lungs and my breathing, my mouth, my throat getting weird, like something was happening, And I recognized it for what it was. I realized that this was just my mind playing with this idea, and it was kind of a scary idea. I hope I'm not scaring anybody as I'm talking about it, but I'm assuming that when you go out in the world to get your groceries or do whatever, if you're having to go to work every day, you may be experiencing this, It was a very fascinating thing, and it could have been a very fearful thing for me to experience. There was fear there, for sure. But instead, I just watched. And it was actually kind of entertaining. It was, because I knew there was no reality. I couldn't possibly be really sensing these things and feeling these things. But so it almost made me laugh at a couple times. It was like chuckle at myself, like, wow, watch that happen. That's interesting, I wanted to share that. It was just a bit of reality, again, of the process of dealing with the situation we find ourselves in, So I did, just to wrap up the story, did get home safely. I've been with my family now for going over a week, or actually today marks a week, actually. So I'm certainly keeping myself here for the next week or more just to make sure that I didn't bring anything home and spread it around anywhere, because that's just a responsible thing to do, obviously. It was wonderful to reunite with my family. I have yet to actually make right the news that I received from my wife, because I am not able to travel, and I would love to see some people and to give them my love so they know, and if they're watching, I hope you know how much I do love you, and I'm wishing you well. So that's my story. That's my little coronavirus story, traveling through vacant, desolate airplanes or airports and being away from my family. And getting bad news. I mean, these are the things that made it extra challenging, if you will, And I'm not trying to, get some cheese with my wine here or anything. I'm just sharing my experience. So what I want to share with you here today, why I would bother telling you all this, is I want to share with you what I know has happened and what in me that made me able to go through that situation in a way that somebody would say something like my friend's wife said to me, where she just said, it doesn't seem to affect you. And I hope I've made it clear that it's not that it doesn't affect me. I just deal with it differently. It just processes through me differently than a lot of people, I think, The first thing I want to point out is there's nothing special about Adrien. Absolutely zero anything special about Adrien in this whole thing. So I want to make sure that's clear. Again, this is my attempt to be humble, but also honest, right? I mean, this is the fact. I want you to know that if you are having a very different experience with the situation, there's nothing different about you or I. There's just a difference in how we approach it or how we deal with it. And that difference that there may be, that's in me, is not something magical. It's actually something that I worked on for quite a long time. Like, I've been working on preparing myself, if you want to say, it's kind of a strange way to say it, but for this sort of thing for decades almost now. For certainly 15 years, I can say. So I'm glad to report, happy to report, that it actually has helped. I watch myself in that way, and it's very interesting. I actually don't tend to see it as much until somebody brings it up like that. That really helped me put it into perspective, if that makes any sense. So there's nothing special about Adrien. But I want to share the first spiritual point here. And that is this buzzword everywhere. It's the word uncertainty. Dealing with uncertainty is a very challenging thing that most of us really avoid doing as much as we possibly can, right? I mean, it's understandable. It's not a very pleasant place to live, like in this feeling of uncertainty all the time. Now, what I want to share with you is the fact that what you're experiencing right now in this coronavirus outbreak and shutdown and all that stuff feels very different than normal reality. But the truth is, it's actually no different. Because the truth is, you live in an environment of uncertainty all the time. every day of your life has been lived like that. You just haven't paid attention to it. So the coronavirus makes you focus, makes you realize this reality. But the truth is, it's always been with you. Now, I know that might not sound very comforting at first, right? I mean, it's like, oh my God, now you're really bumming me. So even when the virus is over, I'm still going to have to feel this way? You don't have to feel this way, but you should, or I encourage you to face this reality. This is a reality of life, uncertainty. So, this is a spiritual practice that I've actually taken on for quite some time now. I'd say I date it back to pretty much about a decade. When my father passed away, I think something in me clicked and I realized that life is uncertainty. And I started to embrace that fact. Now, by the way, I just released, I want to say this like a little plug, I guess, I suppose, but I just released a new blog today. And I did it today instead of Sunday, which is when I usually release my blogs, because almost everything I'm going to talk about today is in that blog. So if you want to read the blog, there's a link in the description below this live stream. So that's just, so you're going to hear these things. And if you want to try to remember or get a different little bit of a different take on it, you can read that blog and it'll help you dive into it a little deeper and remind you. So, uncertainty. Right? This practice that I've taken on. I've done it in the silliest of ways and in the biggest of ways, right? One of the silly ways, and one of the ways I would encourage you to think about engaging with the reality of uncertainty is something like this, right? I could be driving home from work, hard day at work, and my mind starts going to food, right? I haven't eaten in a long time. And of course, I think about dinner, but I'm a big sweets fan, as anybody knows. And so my mind would probably start, dinner cool, but what's after dinner, right? So, I could be thinking about the cookies that my wife or my daughter made the day before, and I'll start thinking about, oh yeah, I can't wait to get a good bite of those cookies. Now, my spiritual practice would be to all of a sudden remember, hey, you don't know if those cookies are going to be there when you get home. So maybe you shouldn't be assuming the fact that you're going to go home and have some cookies. Sounds very trivial and trite. But the reality is, I just built a little muscle, because what did I have to do when I did that? I had to accept reality, because I don't. By the way, I have 3 kids, so there's a really good chance those cookies aren't home, right? But the point is, I have to accept the fact that I don't know if those cookies, I don't know if there'll be any sweets. Who knows, right? I mean, that's just reality. It's unlikely, but it's possible, right? Another one of those things is we get out, we go to work, or we go to the store, or whatever, we get in our car, and we just assume that we're going to make it there safely and make it home safely. Now, I'm not trying to freak anybody out by thinking, I don't want you to get in your head, completely worried or overwhelmed by the sense of uncertainty. But at the same time, you need to realize that you live in this environment. So when I do that, I never assume that my car is going to start. Now, part of this is because when I was young, I had a lot of junkers, and there's a lot of times they didn't start, right? But that has not been the case for a long time. So whatever your situation is, whether you're driving that junker or a brand new car, it's useful to remind yourself that there's nothing in the world that says that car has to start when you turn the key. To be aware of that and to accept that is a useful, you're building an inner strength to accept uncertainty in your life. It's a small thing, but it actually gets you there. Another way that I always talk about this with people, especially if I'm helping them or talking to them about relationships, is my wife and I have been married for 22 years. Now, you would think I'd feel pretty solid in that relationship, and I do, actually. I feel very comfortable and gracious, or full of gratitude for that relationship. But at the same time, if I think about next year, I don't tell myself I'm going to be married to my wife next. I don't know that. So again, that could bring up weird things in you, but I'm telling you, what it does for me after my practice of doing this is that it makes me appreciate my wife. It makes me realize that I can't take this. I don't know if she's going to be there next year. I don't know what's going to happen. So make the best of it. So do my best as a husband. Now, she's here right now. She'd probably be willing to shout out that I don't do that perfectly, right? Again, there's nothing special about Adrien, but it does put that in context for me. I don't make those sorts of assumptions. I don't know if you can see this, but this sort of practice has helped prepare me. When a coronavirus happens, honestly, it's just another day. It worries me. I pay attention, maybe not as much as I should, as we already kind of, but I'm there, I'm aware, I feel it, but it doesn't bother. I'm used to it almost. It's like having to do push-ups or something, right? If you never do any push-ups and somebody asks you to drop and do 20, you're not going to be able to do that very well if you've never exercised those muscles, right? So for me, that muscle's been exercised. I hope that relieves or alleviates some of the mystery of how that would be for me. I mean, it's not actually that hard to see if you understand that life is like that and you work with it in small ways. Like, again, you're not going to do 20 push-ups, right? You're going to do 1, you're going to do 2, until you can do 5. This is a useful thing that I hope that you're seeing seeing the wisdom in. So that's the first thing that I want to share with you, the reality of uncertainty. The second thing is the fact that once you become aware of this, the next thing that's important is priorities. Priorities are incredibly important. Priorities will set the course of your life in a way, right? Like the way I talk about this most often is the fact that we get carried away with the urgent and we lose track of the important, right? Something like this that we're going through right now really kind of can help you reset and realize what's important over urgent, right? Urgent is usually like having to go to work and keeping up the schedules and paying the bills. I mean, these things are important at their certain level, but they're not important when things like this happen. Like all of a sudden you realize, holy cow, like what if I lost this person I love? What if the life never goes back to normal and we have to live in this whole new way? Am I ready for this? Priorities is important to realize that you should be prioritizing some important things. And the important things, now, I'm not here to tell you what those priorities should be exactly, but I would encourage you to think about the fact of what I just shared about uncertainty, and also the fact that dealing with your thoughts and emotions and understanding what they are and how to deal with them should be pretty high on your priority list. And the truth is, for most of it, it's not. I mean, we just kind of go through life. We just kind of stumble and fumble our way through. But there are ways in which we can learn and understand and embrace the discovery of how to deal with these things and what they really mean. So I encourage you to do that. I mean, priorities, by the way, too, is going to be, what is it that you're doing to help understand this? What is it you're doing to further yourself in the acceptance of your emotions and thoughts and the dealing with them? Are they dealing you, or are you dealing with them? Do they own you, or do you own them, so to speak? I want to say too, because I actually just read a Facebook post right before I got on here, from somebody, I won't say who, but she was expressing the fact that, she's done a really good job of keeping a positive attitude, but she's just having a day, and it just sucks, and everything's, the weather. I mean, I think everybody's feeling that this cold snap is a little bit much, right, after all this time, and it's so understandable. I guarantee everybody watching this can relate to that, right? This is the reality, right? This is the thing. This is my teaching about waves. It comes and they go, and one of the things I want to express to you is that I'm not trying to talk to you about being positive. Being positive is a good thing, it's a useful thing, but that's actually not what I'm trying to share with you. When you hear that somebody said to me, oh, it was nice having you around because you were such a bubbly personality, you felt good. It wasn't, that's not me trying to tell you be positive. I didn't try to be positive. I was just myself, which is I found a place within myself, which you have too. That's what I wanted to. That's why there's nothing special about me. That you have too, this place inside of you that is okay. It's not a trying to be positive. Now, trying to be positive can be an important step to discovering this place that I'm talking about, but it's not the place that I'm talking about. I just want to say that. I know that might sound kind of strange and a little hard to maybe understand all the nuance to that, but it's important to me that I share that with you. Because I don't want you to shove around your emotions or your thoughts. I don't want you to try to think or feel any specific way. I want you to see how you're thinking and feeling and understand how to deal with it. Understand what it means. And a lot of what it means, this might be a little isn't much, actually. It's just something passing through. And I know that can be very challenging to understand, because you'd be like, what are you talking about? I mean, my finances are tough. I'm worried about my kids, being safe. And how can you say that this isn't important, or just it doesn't? I'm not saying it isn't important. I'm saying the feelings that you're having about it and the thoughts that you're having about it are just passing through. And if you allow them to pass through a little more freely, like in other words, you don't cling to them so tightly, you'll find that they pass through a lot faster, and then something else shows up. And that something else tends to usually be more useful. And if you find a really quiet, still place within yourself, you're going to realize that you have the power. You have the power to deal with whatever life delivers you. If I could really say one message, that would be the one I'd want to share with you. I don't know you. Maybe I do, maybe I don't. But either way, whether I know you or not, I know that you have the power to deal with whatever life offers you. It may be challenging, it may be hard. It may feel like it's going to break and kill you, but you can overcome it. And I don't even like the word overcome it, but you can get through it. Overcoming it, it's almost like the next step too, overcoming is like making it into something out, like, making it into something good, going back to the positive thing. I'm saying it's not even about that. That's almost like pressure, and it's more pressure. Well, I'm not doing it right. No, you can do it, and you can do it wrong, and you're going to be okay. You're going to be okay. So I hope that you can feel what I'm trying to share with you. And if you find that space that I'm trying to share with you, not only are you going to be okay and get through it, and you will be better. That will happen. You're going to find that an inner strength in you, that if you pay attention to this strength, that will carry you through. And then the next thing you know, and it won't be the next thing, it won't be immediately, but in time, if you continue it, if you prioritize this, somebody be coming up to you and saying, it was so comforting to have you around. You're always such a rock, I wish that for you, and I wish that for the world. We need more of that in the world, So, priorities. I'm going to get teary-eyed here. Priorities. That's the second thing I wanted to share with you. The next one is, great. You've prioritized. Maybe you're feeling what I'm saying, The next one is consistency. If you don't be consistent with your priorities, they're not going to amount to much, right? So consistency is a tough one. I want to tell you another thing here about Adrien. Anyone who knows me now knows that I'm very consistent. I'm very good at that. I get up every morning, blah, 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 blah. I don't want to brag. I'm not trying to brag. But it's something that I have figured out pretty well. And I can choose something and do it consistently. That is not how Adrien's been all his life. It's actually probably only been the last 10 years or so that I've really fallen into that rhythm, which it is a rhythm too, just like everything else. That feeling, the waves and the feelings, that's a rhythm, that's a wave, it comes and goes. Consistency is that way too, right? I mean, there's so many times I sit down to write that blog or I don't feel like it. I'm having a hard time getting myself, it's a wave, but I've learned how to ride it out. So, consistency. I'm going to make this one short, but one of the most important things to understand, one of the things the first thing that I noticed when I shifted from struggling with consistency to all of a sudden noticing that I was getting better at it, was the first moment that I stopped beating myself up every time I wasn't consistent. The way I normally share this with people, and I do in the blog that I was telling you about that you can read, is be kind to yourself. We all fall. I still fall. It doesn't, just because I say I'm so good at it doesn't mean that I'm always good at it, right? When I realized that if I stopped beating myself up and I just noticed that I didn't do this thing that I said I was going to, I prioritized and I didn't keep it up, and I noticed it and I forgave myself and I said to myself, you know what? Feeling super bad about it and making myself feel bad about it and feel like crap doesn't help me get consistent, right? As soon as I started to let that go, I started to get more consistent. So I encourage you, if you struggle with consistency, I don't care what it is, right? Try that. The next time you realize that you haven't been consistent, please forgive yourself. We all do it. It's not unusual. Don't feel bad about it. Just pick yourself back up and start again. Now, here's another little tip here, and then I'm going to wrap up consistency. A lot of times when we haven't been consistent, right? I mean, what happens is we set these priorities, we get the flash in the pan, right? We're all excited, we're gung-ho, and we're sticking to it for a week, 2 weeks, and then the next thing you know, we've sloughed off, and the next thing you know, we've missed it. We haven't done it for a week. We haven't done it for 2 weeks. Sometimes it can happen, you don't even realize it in a way. It's like all of a sudden you look back and you go, oh my gosh, I haven't done this in so long. The moment you realize that, we already talked about what to do, right? Forgive yourself. It's okay. Be kind to yourself. Don't beat yourself up. That just keeps you stuck in that place, right? So then now, what happens though, what makes it so hard to start again is you've lost some momentum, right? That's understandable. The best thing to do is just try to get a little momentum again. So pick something simple. I don't know if we're talking about a diet, it's just eat a little something healthy and refrain from, if we're talking about exercise, just do a little something. If we're talking about this inner work, which is what I'd really love to see and hear people say that they've been trying now, it's just pay attention to that one silly little thing, that craving that cookie, and then reminding yourself, hey, I don't know if it's going to be there. Or, you see it, right? That little thing, when I'm struggling here at this desk right here to write, that's what I'll do. I'll just be like, all right, you know what? I'm going to quit here in a minute, but let me just do one little thing and then I'll quit. And I do the one little thing. And I tend to be like, oh, all right, I'll just do this other little silly thing, simple. Next thing I know, I get a little momentum. And the next thing you know, I'm working on whatever it is I was dreading or was having a hard time working on. Can you feel that? I hope that's useful to you. It's been very useful to me. So, that's consistency. So those are the three things. The next thing I want to talk to you about, really briefly if we can, and then I will take questions it doesn't look like I'm getting questions. I don't know, if somebody wants to try to ask me a question so I can see if they're coming through. I don't know if anybody has tried yet. That would be great. I'm sorry, I'm just going to click on something here in hopes that it helps. I'm sorry. Trying messages. All right, I don't know. I just tried something. Okay, so is what? What do we do? Okay, so great, Adrien. You want me to work on being, more aware of my inner world and how my thoughts and emotions and how to deal with them, and how do I do it? What do I do? Okay, so I'm going to take a second here to plug one of my own things. And I'll just real briefly, I have created an online course, and it is available now. I actually just lowered the cost to $20 in hopes that it will encourage some of you to actually engage in that if it interests you. So I do have a course that it has a lot to do with just that. It's called Activating Wisdom. So again, that link, I believe I made that link in the bottom of this description too. So if you want to check that out, go for it. That's going to be a very practical way for you to engage in this inner work because it helps guide you through it, right? So that's one way, obviously. And to anybody else, by the way, this isn't just about me plugging. It's a simple, how could I not plug my own thing about this, right? This is exactly what I set it up for. It's to help you figure out the what or the how and to go through it, right? So I also might encourage you to become a member of the website because that's like a bi-weekly thing where I'm constantly throwing something out there. So that's just my own personal plug. Again, find another spiritual teacher or another teacher. I don't, if it's Tony Robbins, he's fantastic. Work on it. It's up to you. I'm not trying to tell you what to do. I'm just trying to tell you that if you don't prioritize, if you don't find a what to do, how to do this thing, you're not going to get very far, right? It's going to be the flash in the pan. So then I want to just talk about two things that are very useful and universal and ubiquitous, really, too. Like, it's not going to surprise you probably, but the first one is mindfulness. Mindfulness is a fantastic practice. I actually do have a blog about that too. I should have linked that. Maybe I will after this, or you can just go to the website, check out the blogs. The reason I say that is because you can go to, this isn't me, but there's a link in there that has like all kinds of different mindfulness practices, like helps you figure out how to do this in your day-to-day life. Because mindfulness is a very beautiful, simple technique that helps you start to become aware of your inner world and what's actually there besides all the noise, all the emotions and thoughts and commotion out in the outside world. Mindfulness is a very powerful and relatively simple practice, which is what? That you just get here now, right? Like whatever you're doing, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, stop thinking about the past and worrying about the future, right? And just get present for a moment. Anybody who's actually ever done that already knows it's quite miraculous, actually. I mean, if you actually fall into it, sometimes it takes a little time to actually stumble there because you don't even know what you're trying to do. You're trying to stop and just wash the dishes. That's always the one you hear. But when you actually do it, you'll feel an ease. This is the other thing that I wanted to say about uncertainty and, mindfulness and all of these, like not trying to be positive. I've said this a lot lately, but I want to say it again. the only way that you can relax, we all like to relax, right? A lot of times we go through all kinds of things to get there, right? We'll go on vacation, have a few drinks, spend all kinds of money, get the, rent the right move, whatever it is, right? All the things we do to try to relax, the only thing that's ever going on if we achieve it is that we're letting go. This is mindfulness. This is the next thing I'm going to talk about too, which is meditation. There's just different levels to letting go. All you're doing is letting go of these thoughts, letting go of these feelings that are going on inside. Now, I know that's a lot easier said than done, right? But learning this skill, again, this comes down to, is it powerful? It's going to benefit you so much in your life that I can't even begin to express it to you. So I encourage you to check this out, to try it out, to start learning new ways to engage with it, because this is how you learn that you are not your thoughts and your emotions, that they just come and go. You actually watch them. By being mindful, you fall into the moment and you let go of these things, like I said, and all of a sudden you feel what? You feel relaxed. You feel your true nature. You feel who you really are, which is why I feel confident when I tell you that I know that you can deal with whatever life has to offer you, because we all have this place inside. All we have to do is learn these techniques, is learn this way of letting go. So I encourage you to do it. Mindfulness is a powerful practice, okay? Meditation is another one. Meditation typically is considered, sitting down in a formal position, breathing, watching your breath, counting your breaths, doing a mantra. There's all kinds of different ways to actually meditate. But as I shared in a YouTube video, and I believe I wrote a blog about that too, meditation, the essence of meditation, the reason meditation is worth doing in a way, is because it starts to teach you in a very real and like in real time way of how to let go. Because that's the whole practice. Whatever your method is, your thoughts and feelings arise, and you start practicing letting them go, letting them be, not feeding into them. These are powerful things. These are powerful, powerful methods, even though they might sound really simple. And believe it or not, I don't know if you can feel the benefit already, but if you know how to do this, if you know how to let go, what can life throw at you that you can't deal with? It doesn't really matter, because what is it going to do? What is it going to do? It's going to evoke an emotion or thoughts in you. That's all it can do. And you know how to let that go, how to move on to the next one. Because then what's the next one? The next one is, okay, there's a big problem, let's say. We're in one right now. There's a big issue. What do? Well, we can get afraid about it, and that's reasonable, and it's understandable. It's not, again, we're not trying to shove these things around. But if we allow that fear and then watch it move on, the next thing is, okay, what do we do about it? How do we move forward? How can we turn this into something that's useful too? Because there's always that other side to something, right? Like, this is it right now. We wouldn't be having this conversation right now if it wasn't for this crazy situation that we find ourselves in. I know many people are asking questions that they really didn't spend time asking. This is useful in this situation. This is something that could change your life forever. When this is all said and done, you could be like, that was a time that after that moment, after that big episode that we went through as a whole society, as a global society, I was never the same after that. I learned some important techniques that helped me for the rest of my life. This is possible. And you don't have to actually, manipulate anything. This is just what happens if you pay attention to what's going on inside of you and you get in touch with this power that you have, that I have, that we all have. So I encourage you to do that. So I said I was going to, I'm not getting any messages. I'm not sure if anybody is actually trying to message.
I got them.
You're getting them?
Yeah, you want me to read?
Yeah, actually, my wife is getting the messages. I'm having a small computer problem. I am going to I'm going to ask everybody, if I see that we have about 13 people, which is really exciting to me, and I'm really excited and honored that you're all there watching. Please note that if you're okay, if you're good and you want to keep going, because I don't want to drag it on forever. I want to keep you here because I want to do a giveaway, and I want to do a guided meditation to maybe give you a taste of what this thing is I'm talking about together, which is a beautiful thing to do, to experience the moment and your inner power together a little bit. So anyways, if you would leave a note to make sure that you're all okay, I'll just continue. But until then, until we get a bunch of notes, hopefully, my wife's going to share one of the questions. Mm-hmm. Okay, so she's doing that right now.
I would love to know thoughts on the difference of consistency versus self-discipline.
Wow. So this person wants to know the difference between consistency and self-discipline. I love this question. This is like right up my kind of alley because because this is a very nuanced question. This is a very subtle question. And as I often say, the realm of spirituality is entering into the more subtle and nuanced realm. And that's what that question is all about. So, and I love it because there's so much power in discerning the difference here. So the difference between self-discipline and consistency would be sort of the difference between what I shared about positivity. Like, I'm not trying to get you to be positive, to have positive thoughts. That is a human being trying to control their environment. By the way, that's another way you can try to deal with uncertainty, right? You can try to control it. Part of why I use my father as a pivotal moment in my life of realizing uncertainty is real is my dad did a great job of trying to make sure he was ready for the uncertainty of life, meaning he saved a lot of money. He prepared for retirement. So it's going to make me cry almost to say it, but he didn't make it. Okay? So he was doing his best to plan for uncertainty, but uncertainty has the final say. I think if he had lived with the reality of uncertainty a little more, he would have probably lived his life a little fuller, a little different. So I know I probably sound like I'm off subject, but we're not trying to force something. The difference between self-discipline is like an excessive use of willpower, where consistency is we're shifting things subtly and slowly within us to where we find that we're consistent. We're doing this in a much more gentle way, not so heavy-handed, if that makes any sense. Now, self-discipline is important, by the way, and it plays a part, and we're all going to probably go there in our journey towards consistency. But when I say consistency about my life now, like when I say I'm consistent, I don't exercise self-discipline. And I know you might say, well, it sounded like you did. To me, it's a very different reality because I don't feel like I'm forcing anything. It happens quite naturally. Even that, it's because I write these things for you guys, honestly, because I care. I don't have to I don't have to be self-disciplined about it. I hope this helps explain or answer your question or give you a different way to think about it, because I don't know if I even want to answer your question, right? That's for you to do, as I posted the other day, but give you something else to think about it. Anything else?
How do you determine which feelings/thoughts you listen to and which you let pass?
Fantastic. So I gotta have a drink of water here. I'm sorry. So this question, another very beautiful. These are great questions. Very subtle question. How do you realize? And actually, this is in I think my last blog, not the one that I did today, but before. How do you? Can you say it again? How do you know which? How do you determine
which feelings, thoughts you listen to and which you let pass?
How do you determine which thoughts and feelings you let go of and which ones you hold on to, or something like that, right? That's that pretty decent.
The ones that you listen to?
Yeah, the ones that you listen to and the ones you let go. So how do you determine which thoughts and emotions you listen to and which ones you let go? This is maybe not so subtle. I mean, it's a subtle distinction, and I appreciate the question greatly. I'm glad it came up because it lets me say this very important thing. None of them. Don't hold on to any of them. That's going to lead you to the greatest freedom. That's when I can tell you, I've been through many phases in my life, and I'm still in one. I don't ever want to make it sound like Adrien, so there's no special thing, right? But the phase that I'm in now in my life is I realize that I don't hold on to any of them, or I do my best to not hold on to any of them. Some of them are a little stickier, right? When my wife's in pain, it's a little stickier for me. It's not so easy to just let it go, right? But I've learned that even that is good for me to allow to happen. It's not that I don't care. If I watch carefully and closely, I feel the pain of, It's my own pain, by the way, but it's me empathizing with my wife, for an example. And I allow it to be. And what happens is it comes, and it can cause feelings and thoughts and things that make me want to behave in certain ways. And if I'm not watching carefully, like I don't want to get too nuanced here, but if I get too involved with it, it'll start changing the way that I respond. If I allow it to be, I'll just respond. And I'll respond to my wife what she needs, not what I think, not what I want. Because what ends up happening is I'm feeling her emotions, but they become mine. So then I'm not really feeling her emotions anymore. I'm feeling my own. And they have their own story and their own thing to them. And all of a sudden, I'm actually more wrapped up in myself than I am in my wife. So if I feel that, and I allow it to be, and I allow it to move, because it will move if I don't feed it and hold on to it, and then I'm there. I'm more present for my wife. So again, to answer the question very simply, which ones? You let them all go. Now, I know, actually, I had this great moment with somebody I was working with on spiritual, practices and in a counseling nature, and he was struggling really bad with some very specific stuff, and it was very understandable. And we were talking about riding the waves. This is when I was really just, really working on that whole thing, and he was getting a lot out of it, and the situation finally passed, and so he was having that. It was like the next day, and he's driving around, and he's feeling pretty good. He's like, wow, I got through that. It's done. I'm so glad I learned a lot, because I was really riding the waves and starting to understand my inner world and all this kind of stuff. And, he's a very deep dude anyway, so he was already, but it just took it to another level, and feeling good. And all of a sudden a thought occurred to him that, you know what? You need to let that go too. And he said, I did let it go. And then I felt like 10 times better, which might be surprising, but that's what I'm sharing that story because, believe it or not, that's what happens. And what happened for him in that moment, and what can happen for you, and what happens to me many, many times, is what he experienced was the difference between happiness, which was like, I got through it and I feel good, and to joy, which is a much deeper level. And it's something that's actually doesn't determine, or your situation doesn't determine that joy. That's where when you relax, that's what you're feeling, your inner joy, your true nature, as Buddhists would say, Buddhism. So that's my answer, if that's good. Got another one?
I got a couple.
Okay.
How do you share these thoughts without sounding arrogant or lecturing? How do you try to inspire people who are resistant without turning them off?
So this person wants to know, how do you share these thoughts without being pushy or turning people off by like trying to seem, holier than thou or better than thou? I'm putting words in their mouth, but I think that was what they were trying to express. And this is a great question too. I mean, these are all just spot on questions. I can honestly say that I struggled with this for a long time. And my wife might say, you're still struggling with it. So, because sometimes with her especially, I probably can get more lectury than she would. And I don't mean to do that even, right? Of course, I'm just sharing my thoughts and my feelings with her. And sometimes they're not welcome because they sound like that. I don't mean to put words in my wife's mouth. But so the best I can express about this is to do less talking and more doing. Actually, let me blot that out. Scratch that. Not doing. Being. Less talking and more being. Being the change we want to see, as the saying goes, is really the ticket. Again, I didn't do anything in California for that woman to say to me what she said. Not intentionally. And I didn't say anything. I actually, maybe one of the things that she noticed about it is I never even brought up coronavirus. If they talked about it, we talked about it, and that was fine. And otherwise, I just, it's just like I did. There wasn't much for me to talk about in my world, and so I don't know if that's part of what registered for her or not, or what it was exact. I don't know, because I wasn't trying to do anything. But as I shared in the story, it obviously had an effect on her. I don't know if that's going to make her behave differently. That's up to her, right? And that's part of it too. It's not really my business. Even in this, even when I counsel with people, when I'm actually their active coach or spiritual guide or whatever, it's really not my business whether they do anything with it. I just share information. I just offer what it is I think they need to hear or see, or right. And I think that that's best suited. And I noticed I get the best results typically. First of all, when I know that person, or when we've had enough time together where they sense my vibe, I think. So again, it's not about what I say as much as who I am in a weird way. And I'm not trying to brag when I say that. I'm just saying that there's a difference, though, right? We all know those people who are running around telling everybody what they should do, right? And then you watch them, and then, there's just boundless hypocrisies, right? So, attempting to stay away from that is certainly useful. And what do you do with all that energy that you have and all that joy that you want to share? Because maybe you're experiencing a new way of seeing the world and you want to share that. Well, first I would say turn it inward again if you can. So it's, in other words, like kind of recycle it a bit. Have it double down your efforts for yourself, because there's this energy. Well, you can use it there too, right? You can kind of recycle it back into yourself to say, gosh, I really want to tell this person that or this or that, or share all these things. And okay, maybe pick one or two or do your certain thing, but then take the rest and pull it back in and say, why am I feeling this way? Why do I feel the need to do that? Why do I feel the need to have this person be different than they are, actually, is another valid question. I can tell you that the deeper I've gone in my own personal path, the less I've felt the need to change other people. Now, you'd like to see things different for people when you see they're suffering, but I don't feel that like, oh my God, I got to do something about it. It drives me crazy. It doesn't drive me crazy. I just have empathy, I guess, for it. And by the way, it's not that it never drives me crazy, but rarely these days. It's less and less. And I think that's because I'm in a deeper, better place, and I feel the need for that is less and less and less. It's almost a compensation in a way. Anyways, I could go on and on and on, but sorry.
If you wanted to start with one small step to become consistent with regarding coping with the fear part of this pandemic, what would you say would be the most helpful tool to start with?
God, that's a very good question. Someone asked me a specific tool for dealing with fear during this pandemic. What would you start with? One simple thing. I should have been really prepared for this question, but I actually I haven't thought about that for 1 second. So I'm going to just tell you what pops in my head here. Well, I've already talked about it, of course, really. But I don't know you. I don't know who this person is that's asking. But so I don't know where you're at in this practice or this awareness of your own feelings and how to deal with them. But I would say the first thing you should do is, when the feeling arises. Now, this is a practice, actually. Okay? Oh, actually, I'm going to share this. I'm going to take 2 seconds to share. It's another plug, but it's not a plug in any way. Like, I'm actually in the midst of creating what I'm calling the real approach. And it's going to be a totally free course-like thing. It's going to be like 5 videos, and I'm in the midst of putting this together, and I'll be releasing it to everybody. If you're interested, I think I did put my email. Email me. I'll be sure to let you know about it when it's ready. I'm hoping about a week, because I know it's really relevant for our situation. So I'm going to explain this really quick, because this is a great practice for you to do. Okay. First, so it's the real approach. So it's an acronym. So it's real, remember, R, remember. E, evoke. A, allow. And L, let go. So there's a lot of steps there, and there's a lot of nuance to all those things. That's what I'm going to go through very thoroughly, as thoroughly as I can, each one of those things in the free course. But okay, so anyways, if you feel this fear rising up in you, first, remember that you can not just buy into it, right? So that's the remembering part. Like, all of a sudden you're like, I'm feeling afraid, whatever the thoughts are coming in. The first thing you have to do is to actually realize it, is to remember that. That immediately shifts it just a little bit. Then recognize, that's the other part of the R, there's a 2-part thing. Recognize that feeling. So is it fear? Okay. Then you're going to feel it in your body, where it is. Is it in your heart? Is it in your head? Is it in your heart and your head, right? You're going to feel your fear. Now, most of us don't. I've already probably lost half of you, right? Because I don't want to feel my fear. I'm telling you that this is power, my friend. So as much as you can do this, I mean, we don't want to overwhelm ourselves, but we do it to the point where we can do it. So we just do that to where we feel comfortable. We just try to be with it for a minute. We open to it. That's the allowing part. But you can also evoke. So right now I'm sharing with you, and I hope my vibe comes through this whole video for you, that there's an intention. If you set an intention in your heart right now that you want to deal with your fear differently, that's the evoke part. So you would pick a word to use as your trigger to evoke your intention to deal with this different, to allow this feeling. That moves to the next one. Did you see it? So recognize, remember, evoke this intention of being willing to feel it, to not want to just run. Then you allow it. That's the in breath, if you will. Like you let it in as much as you can. Don't overwhelm yourself. And then it's the out breath, the let go. So in other words, you're not gonna feed, or you're gonna do your best to not feed into that emotion of fear. You're just gonna look at it. You're gonna recognize it. You're gonna evoke this intention inside of yourself. You're going to allow it to be what it is. You're not going to try to push it around, but you're also not going to indulge it. So you're not going to try to repress it. Like, I don't want to be afraid. I'm sick of this crap. None of that even. But you're not going to indulge it like, oh my God, blah, 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 blah. And then you let it go. And let it go means that kind of happens on its own time. You're not so in charge with that. So it'll happen faster the more you learn this, the more you practice it. But that would be, I hope that wasn't too much. I mean, that was a pretty long answer. But that's something I would suggest. And that's just my thing. There's a million different versions of pretty much the same thing, right? The main thing is to look at it. Do your best to not run from it, to not try to manipulate it. This is what we do. We try to control things all the time, And we control it by either, turning it into something else or running, like escaping and distraction and this and that. Right? This doesn't allow the emotion to have its way. I mean, it just wants to come through you. If you don't allow it to come and go, it just wants to be heard. So it continues itself. This is the law of dissidence too that I talk about many times. Anyways, I hope that wasn't too long of an answer. Anything else, or?
We have a comment.
Okay, a comment.
The feeling I get when you're talking about the difference between self-discipline and consistency is sort of the difference between swimming and floating. I can almost feel it as you talk about it.
Oh, I love that. Somebody said that I appreciate that, whoever said that. And they said the difference between, they felt, as I was talking about the difference between consistency and, I'm mixing up the things in my head, consistency and self-discipline. They said that they got the image of like the difference between floating and swimming. And I love that. There's a lot of spiritual texts that would talk about that in a way. Like the Tao is the water course way, as they say. And that's because you learn to flow with life, right? And so instead of trying to, a lot of times what life is flowing, it's always changing. This is the uncertainty part, right? It's always moving. And instead of just flowing with it, we tend to try to hold on. I believe this is in Seeing Beyond, but it's in one of the books I've read. And you're trying to hold on, and when you try to hold on, you cause the turbulence. If you ever think about a branch that gets stuck in the stream, right? What happens? It starts. That's the feeling that we get. That's where we can get all kinds of different things from that, all kinds of different feelings from that, fear and anxiety and all kinds of stuff. I mean, we can even get off on it in a way, right? We're just trying to control reality, and we're making things happen, and it's not always pleasant. So anyways, I love that. Thank you for sharing. The difference between consistency and self-discipline is something maybe like the difference between floating and swimming. Anything else? I think we've caught up. So I want to say that I actually didn't work this out either. I'm kind of a wing it guy, for anybody who knows that. I'm always winging everything. But I want to say that I want to do a giveaway. So I want to do a free signed book if you haven't had that yet. Like if you don't have my book yet, Seeing Beyond. So I want to do that. And I also want to do a free online course giveaway. So if you're interested in taking Activating Wisdom, I want you to, I believe I did leave the email address below below the description of the video, I'm sorry. And if you will email me your interest, I will enter you into just a lottery thing, and we'll pick out a name, and you will be the person who gets the free Activating Wisdom course or the signed Seeing Beyond book. So that's just a side, just a fun thing I wanted to do. I mean, you're supposed to do these things too, right? But I actually want to do these things because it's very fun for me to share that with you. I believe that the Activating Wisdom course is going to be very useful for anybody who uses it. By the way, we've had a few reviews already. They've been very good reviews, so I'm happy to say. I'm constantly tweaking it a little bit too, so that's also exciting. So it's a lifetime access course, so you can go back, and if you see things different, that's kind of fun too. So anyways, I encourage you to check that out. That leaves us with one final thing that we're going to wing together here. And that is, I'd like to spend the time. We lost one person, but that's pretty good. I'm feeling pretty good about myself. If you're interested, we're going to spend a few minutes here in a guided meditation. So I encourage you to get comfortable if you're not already. If you're standing or doing something, please find a comfortable place to sit. And take a few deep breaths. I'm going to talk a little bit about meditation for a minute as we prepare ourselves here. So most people find it most advantageous to close your eyes. And that's the way that I do it too when I meditate, when I do my formal meditation. It doesn't work for everybody, and I like to acknowledge that because some people do better with their eyes open, actually, because they find too much distraction when they close their eyes because there's all kinds of inner imagery and all kinds of things like that. So I leave that up to you. Either close your eyes or leave them open. Usually when you leave them open, though, you kind of cast them at a 45-degree angle. You blur your vision a little bit, like in other words, you're not overly focused, or you can pick something specific to just stay focused on. That's another technique. I'm just sharing some meditation techniques as we prepare ourselves. And then I would invite you to take a deep breath. Settle into your body. I'm not sure what you're feeling right now, but whatever you're feeling right now is okay. You don't need to do anything with it. You don't need to try anything. We're just sitting here together, quiet, in this moment. In this moment, you're here. Can you sense your here-ness? You don't have to do anything to be here. You are here. Life is happening not around you, but in you. You are an intricate, intimate part of life. And you needn't do anything for that to be true. You simply are beautiful and perfect exactly as you are right now. I encourage you to be quiet, to be still. And as I say those words, I pray that they are evoked the reality of stillness, silence, and space within you now. Right now, just for this moment, everything is okay. If you feel something in your body that doesn't feel that way, that's okay. You don't need to do anything about it, because this feeling is just something floating through you, like a cloud in the sky. This moment doesn't need to do anything for you, and you don't need to do anything for this moment. It just is. You are. And believe it or not, you always will be. In this moment, you have a choice. One simple choice. You can allow this moment to be exactly as it is, or you can resist it. I encourage you to allow this moment to be exactly as it is. If you can allow this moment, you can allow every moment in your life to be. And by allowing, you will discover a power within you that is greater than anything you can imagine. Can you feel this power? This power is you. I'm so grateful that you all got to share this time together and with me in my sacred little space here. I don't know if I know all of you or not, but I want you to know that I love you. I love you, whoever you are, and that you are as dear to me as I am to myself. There's no difference in a certain way. So I hope that you can allow that and understand that, because it helps you open to this moment. You're fantastic, whoever you are and however you are. And I'm very grateful that you were here. As always, I thank you for your time, because it's precious.